This episode of Twin Cities Trekkies is brought to you by Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor before, let me explain. First of all, it's free. There are creation tools that help you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. You can easily make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership required. They'll also help you to distribute your podcast so it can be heard on many different platforms, such as Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It's all you need in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Okay, everyone. Welcome to episode 23 of Twin Cities Trekkies. I am Wes.
And I'm Kenzie.
And today we're going to talk about the food and beverages of Star Trek. We talked about this back when we had Tashale back on the podcast about 3 months ago. And I figured, why not? Because it's the summertime. It's people are out and about and having food and drink and be merry. Celebrating whatever, God knows whatever you're celebrating. Like here in the Twin Cities, we'll have Twin Cities Pride on the 17th and 18th of July. And then the week after that is the Minneapolis Aquatennial.
Yep. And plenty of beer dabblers and things with celebrating the Brewers Guild of Minnesota.
Yep, definitely. Definitely. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So, granted, we'll just talk about a few of them, and how we feel if we want to try them, if we ever were in the Star Trek universe.
Yeah. Have you ever had any food that's been made to emulate the food of Star Trek? Like people would try to make blood wine or anything. I've never tried to do that. I met people who do with a Harry Potter, making butter beer. I've never tried to make any food from Star Trek.
No, I have not. And
although I've always wanted to get the Star Trek cookbook because it has a Neelix on the front. Oh, and I'm I want Neelix to teach me how to make some good Star Trek food.
Yeah. I've wanted to get that book too. So you great minds think alike.
I'm I need that. That'd be pretty sweet.
Yes.
I gotta make a mixology book for all the ales of different all the different ales for the different people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so to get in touch with us, it's pretty simple. Email us at tctrekkiespodcast@gmail.com. Send us an email with anything you'd like to say, within reason. Granted, if you're reacting to this episode, tell us if you've had any of those foods and beverages from Star Trek. Are they good? Are they not good? Let us know. That kind of thing. So, or if you could comment on our Facebook post or Instagram post, this handle is same, TC Trekkies Pod. If you send us a comment there, that's perfectly fine too. And, you can also find us on YouTube. YouTube is the same as TC Twin Cities Trekkies, pretty easy to find. Comments can be left there too. So, and then to send us voice messages, pretty easy to find, pretty easy to do. Send us go to anchor.fm/Twin Cities Trekkies. Click on that little button that says message and enable your microphone to leave us a voice message. I think there is no time limit, so if you have a whole hour to say what you need to
ramble.
Say,
we'll just feature you as a whole new episode. We'll just take your snippet and just play that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. So keep in mind that any feedback you may leave, vocal or written, may be featured in a future episode of this podcast.
Did you know that there are over 1 million podcasts out there and over 30 million episodes? So why should you listen to PodJerky? Well, we have a little bit of something for everyone. We discuss topics such as fertility, pet peeves, Netflix reviews, music, conspiracy theories, and everything in between. We will entertain you, make you laugh, and make you cry. Our amazing guests are also sure to put a smile on your face. Tune in every week to PodJerky on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever podcasts can be found. PodJerky, bringing you original flavor.
Okay, so we do have one comment, by the way, and it's from our good buddy Jim Stoffel.
Nice.
Yep, and he had commented on the episode that actually just dropped, which was the 21st episode, about our first character analysis of the central figure of Star Trek shows, the primetime winning James T. Kirk. And he had said, "Can't wait to listen. I caught up this weekend. I listened to episodes 19 and 20. I really liked 19, which was about the underrated episodes, which was titled what happens in the Delta Quadrant stays in the Delta Quadrant." Yeah. So he said, "I agree, real life is a really good episode, and I love clues. Court Martial was one of my favorites. I love Samuel T. Cogley. Unfortunately, I never liked Take Me Out to the Holosuite. But keep up the good work. You make a great team."
Awesome to hear.
Yeah, that was awesome to hear that part, actually, Jim. Yeah. And I actually really do enjoy doing this with you, Kenzie. I really do.
No, it's super nice.
Yeah, it's super nice
to have a way to talk about Star Trek and keep it alive. And it's fun to recommend to people and be like, hey, I'm like, if you're looking for a podcast, it's always a fun thing to drop where it's like, oh, I have a Star Trek podcast. And people are like, what? Like, that's so wild. And then they'll go and listen to it.
Yeah, exactly. Now we'll have, by the time this drop, we'll have 23 episodes for you to listen to. You can go from, and I have a feeling that you would probably get them all done within one day. If you really wanted to, but I'm not. I mean, granted, if you were bored all day, you didn't sleep all day, you can probably get through all of our episodes in one day. But I am not recommending that.
Not recommend,
Not recommend, because
that is a solid possible 24 hours of content.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't recommend you do that. I recommend you do eat, you do sleep, you do work.
Don't lose your job because you're listening to Twin Cities Trekkies.
Yeah, don't lose your job.
Sorry, boss. I'm busy catching up on underrated episodes of Star Trek.
Yeah, we wouldn't. I don't recommend it because you could potentially fall asleep, which happened to me the other day. I was exhausted after work one day, so I decided to put on a little noise while I'm taking a little nap, and I put on an episode of Us, and I actually fell asleep. And it was nothing that you or I did at all. It's just the way I was that day.
I don't ever understand the whole like, oh, am I boring you? I'm like, I always think it's comforting when someone can fall asleep around me, because it means that something about what I'm saying is soothing enough that they feel safe and can fall asleep. You can't fall asleep when you're stressed out. And so I take it as a compliment if someone falls asleep while I'm talking, because I am soothing them. Yeah. It is not something that I am known for. So I can appreciate that.
Yep. So, like I said, don't recommend to listen to all of our episodes at once.
Take your time.
Yeah. Pace yourself.
Do you have dreams that you want to achieve, but are scared to do so due to self-doubt, fear, and other people's criticism? I have just what you need. You need a dose of the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, where I interview guests that will motivate and inspire you to stop at nothing to achieve your dreams. And always remember, if you believe, you can achieve.
The Living the Dream with Curveball podcast is available on your favorite podcast app.
Okay, so we have some exciting news coming out of Trekkie land.
Yes.
It's
What they have to? Are they gonna make like if they're like Paramount's gonna have like their own little like cute name for the Star Trek realm?
Yeah. So there's I call it
Trekkie. Them be like Trekkie land, guys. Come on.
Yeah. But we can't really say Trekland because that's actually Larry Nemechek's. We can't really do that. But I said Trekkie land just to differentiate from him.
Yeah.
So Larry, if you're listening to it, I'm not trying to like infringe on you at all. So if you're listening, Larry, I'm sorry. But we have some exciting news that came out like in the last few days about, this has actually been rumored for at least the last 2 years. Ever since the 40th anniversary of the motion picture has been celebrated, there was rumblings from Paramount that they were going to remaster the director's edition of the motion picture, which actually a lot of fans prefer that version over the theatrical release, which has been released several times since the first J.J. Abrams movie came out in 2009, a couple times since then. And even it's on streaming now on Paramount Plus. It's on both, I think it's both Paramount Plus and Hulu. But so there was an announcement that came out this week that Paramount Plus has decided to bring back the motion picture as the director's edition and remaster it to 4K Ultra HD. So it's, I've been following that page. There's a petition Facebook page out to get the director's edition of the motion picture released on Blu-ray. Then it was 4K, and then it was stuff like that. So it's gonna be in 4K, and stuff like that. So
updating all that sound too. They'll be doing like also updates to the soundtrack and making sure everything's nice and clean and fresh and in the 21st century. It'll be awesome.
And it's been it's always was on DVD. It's been that way for the last 20 years. So and then Robert Wise passed away like a decade ago, so you can't really talk to him anymore. But so they're bringing back the much approved, fan approved director's cut of the motion picture. So bringing back all the CGI elements they had created for that version, putting them up because from what I understand, they have the digital assets still, and stuff like that. So
it sounds like all the restorations of this being done by people who had previously
done with director's edition for 2000 in the 2001. So but did you know that who had created the visual effects were actually the people who worked on DS9 and Voyager? They had the people who did the director's cut of the motion picture. It no longer exists. It's Foundation Imaging. They were the ones who did the visual effects starting in season 4 of DS9 and then going through the end of Voyager. Nice. I didn't know that. And then they rebranded themselves as Eden FX for Enterprise. So so it's going to take the 6 to 8 months. That's what they're saying, and it should be, and it will debut on Paramount Plus in early 2022, which is probably an exciting thing to do because 2022 is going to be a big year for Star Trek. Which granted 2020 was supposed to be the big year, but then the pandemic happened, and now it's going to be 2021 to 2022 is going to be the big years for Star Trek. Because 2021, 55th anniversary. So, and then 2022, we have Picard and Strange New Worlds and this, and whatever comes after that. So this is exciting news. I personally prefer the director's edition of the motion picture. So, over the theatrical cut. I still have problems with the film. I still do, but the director's edition
I like the storyline of it. The pacing is tough. You're not into some slow, grandiose. It's just like I think the same people that can enjoy 2001: Space Odyssey would not be able to enjoy the motion picture. That same type of like very theatrical, very grandiose. A lot of it's focused on the special effects and like the way things look more than anything. Like
and the musical score.
And the storyline's good though. Like I think it's a cool storyline, so that's why I always enjoyed it. I can look past that to enjoy that part because I'm like that is like a true what if scenario type of thing that I've thought about with my parents being like sentient machinery, things we send out into the universe that we don't think about how it will decay or evolve or change over time. Come back to haunt us.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, definitely. So I prefer the director's cut over the theatrical release. I mean, I have the director's cut, but not where I live now. I have it somewhere else, but I do have the director's cut on DVD. I'm looking forward to actually purchasing the Blu-ray of the director's cut when it does come out. And speaking of Blu-ray, Paramount Home Entertainment is actually Paramount themselves are actually remastering all 10 prime timeline films into 4K. The motion picture is one of them, the theatrical release.
Yep.
And then all the rest of the films will eventually be there. But starting on the 7th of September, you'll be able to purchase the first 4 motion picture, Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock, Voyage Home in Ultra HD 4K. And there's only one for right now. There's only one updated special feature, and that's for the motion picture. There is going to be an isolated musical track, so you can watch the entire film just with the music from Jerry Goldsmith.
Which it makes sense for a movie like that. That's exactly like that type of like it's cinematic experience. Yeah, you should be able to just watch it with music and be like, there you go.
Yeah, so it's kind of weird that they're releasing the first 4, and then it's probably going to be 3 separate releases. But so you got the first 4 coming out in September, and then probably the rest of them in 2022, because this remastering process takes a while. It, from what I understand, it takes a while. So, all 10 original films will be in Ultra HD 4K. Starting in September, and if you want to purchase the first 4 and justify them keep doing it, so go for it.
Yeah, that's sweet.
The cover art looks amazing. I mean, it does look amazing. So, but then also it's also to promote 55th anniversary. But then Fathom Events is who have done Star Trek events in the past, with like the Next Generation, the motion picture. They did a couple of days of streaming of that movie, and then the very first one they did was about the menagerie. Yep. So they are going to bring back the Voyage Home for 2 days in August to celebrate that film's 35th anniversary. So it'll be the 19th and 22nd at select theaters across the United States.
Come on, cities, do it.
Yeah. So if you want to go see it, and enjoy the one with the whales in full 4K HD in a movie theater. So if you weren't around in '86 when it came out, like you and I, or like that, yeah, it's exciting news, and I have a feeling that both First Contact and Star Trek 6 would be joining them eventually. Who knows? Because they also celebrate anniversaries. That's also the 25th, the 30th anniversary of Star Trek 6, and then the 25th anniversary of First Contact. So I have a feeling that eventually they'll be on in a theater near you this fall. Who knows? It's just right now it's just the Voyage Home, but who knows? So that's exciting news. And finally, Comic-Con at Home is later on in July, and the Star Trek universe will have a panel there. with both casts of Lower Decks and Prodigy. So, I mean, granted, we haven't seen a trailer yet for Prodigy.
Yeah.
And we've gotten
kind of
stills,
like a mystery.
We've gotten stills from them, like, how expansive this looks. Everyone's been saying this looks amazing. Like, it's like, this is like 2 years in the making. So this is amazing stuff. I've seen all the stills. We get to see the voice cast for the first time. They were all named and stuff like that. And it's going to be. I hope we get to see a trailer for Prodigy. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, more information about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So we don't know too much about them. Granted, they revealed all the cast members and stuff like that, who was playing who, and it wasn't who I would have thought who was going to be like a guy who was going to play this big giant rock character. No, it's a 10-year-old girl who's playing it.
That's awesome. I love it. That's even better.
Yeah. And I mean, it sounds like this is going to be, they're, excited about, it sounds like this is going to be an exciting show, and I think if it's David Mack or is it Dayton Ward, one of those two Trek authors is an executive consultant.
Oh,
so yeah, no, it's David Mack. He is one of the consultants for Prodigy. He was hired back in 2019 to be a creative consultant on Prodigy. So there is some Star Trek literary like big name in the literary universe for Prodigy. So and I think that
I need to read every time I hear about Office, I'm like, dang, I need to read more of the books. That is the one thing, like, in the Star Trek universe, I have not touched not a lot of the actual material, like reading material.
Yeah, they're gonna, and what I understand, they're gonna end the novel verse, which had been built up for the last 20 years after Nemesis. They're gonna end it this fall. So I mean, it's, from what I understand, there's a trilogy of books coming out called Coda, and it's going to be the ending of this version of the novel verse. It's kind of like, since Picard came out, everyone was thinking, like, are they going to incorporate some of the canon from the novels and stuff like that came out between Nemesis and Picard? Well, unfortunately, sorry to all you novel lovers out there, it ain't going to happen. Paramount, Viacom, CBS decided to do the same thing that Disney had done with the Star Wars expanded universe. Yeah. Unfortunately, and decided to push that novel verse into an alternate reality. So, and still there'll probably still be books from that era, but it just be, you gotta know that they are not part of the actual canon through line anymore. Yeah. So it's kind of sad, to hear that happening. But from what I understand, this Coda trilogy that starts in September, first book's gonna be written by Dayton Ward, by David Mack and stuff like that, and it's going to be the end of it, or put a finality to it. Yeah, from what I understand. So there may be books coming after that, but Coda is where it's going to end. So, which is kind of sad, because I thought some of the books that they had written, especially in the last 10, 12 years, should have been adapted for TV. Yeah, or
it's one of those things where I wish they would use more of that as as part of storylines. There's so much out there, and it seems like they just kind of are avoiding touching it. It's unfortunate, because I'm like, hey, if you want to be up there with Star Wars and really breaking that out, you should probably be, using all this material given to you.
Yeah, they should. But they're not going to, unfortunately, and it's kind of sad. But and speaking of the novel verse, we're going to get a new book in April of 2022 from Picard that is set between the events of season 1 and the beginning of season 2.
Yeah.
So does that mean we'll get the book before the season comes out? I don't know, but who knows? But that's okay. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. So, but definitely about that. But speaking of Star Trek Productions, they are filming, as of this recording, they are filming the final episode of season 1 of Strange New Worlds.
That's exciting.
Anson Mount, who is very active on social media and stuff like that, he had tweeted out that, you know, a lot of old school fans should be proud of what they're doing, will be proud of what they're doing, and stuff like that. We're filming the final episode of season 1, and that will be that. So he said they're very excited about what he's been able to do as Captain Pike this season, his first season.
So exciting.
Yeah, and you know when
my dad is like super pumped about hearing that from like he loves Captain Pike. In fact, if anyone like who knows my dad in real life like ever interacts with him on Facebook, half the time his profile picture is Captain Pike in the box. He always utilizes that. He's like, some days you feel like this Captain Pike, and some days you feel like this Captain Pike, and he always it's so great.
Yeah, it's awesome. That's awesome. You know, because it's great. And I actually, like I said, I follow on our Instagram. I follow a lot of other Star Trek. We follow other Star Trek podcasts, and I'm gonna shout them out again. A Strange New Pod had tweeted out like something, not tweeted out, but put on their Instagram about something like, what are your hopes for the final episode of Strange New Worlds? Well, I had put a reference back to our 7th episode in which, we want a cliffhanger finale that's on par with Best of Both Worlds. So who knows? I would love that. A season finale that's like, whoa, I want more. So that'd be kind of cool. So, it's exciting what's going on. And, granted, we'll have a lot more things to do and say and purchase this whole 55th year anniversary months as we get closer to the 8th of September. So it'd be kind of great to see. So,
yeah.
Hi, I'm Karina Gantas, host of Behind the Pen podcast. Anyone who works with a pen can be a guest. I've had film and movie stars on the show, award-winning directors, authors, musicians from all over the world. You can find Behind the Pen on my YouTube show under my channel, Karina Gantas, and you can find the audio podcast on Anchor or look for Behind the Pen on Spotify, Google Play, and all the other great podcast platforms. I know nothing about my guest, so as we chat, we soon learn who is behind the pen.
Okay, so the food and beverages of Star Trek. Like I said,
there's a lot of random,
a
lot of random foods, especially in Voyager. Like,
yes,
you have Neelix, and he'll just like every episode name some random dish. Like,
yeah,
like, oh, I can make this for you. Like, and I'm like, all right, cool, thanks, Neelix.
Yeah, it's like cool. Yeah, I mean, if I was on that crew, I'd be in the bathroom a lot.
Yeah, I'm like, I mean, I always like wonder where he's like, he just is so invested in getting like raw ingredients to try to cook instead of replicating food. and like, or try to replicate very basic raw ingredients so that he can make the food. But I mean, the funniest thing is, like, despite him being a cook, and he obviously does well enough that he can keep his job, but there's so many times they show where he's making food that does not sit well with people, or, you know, like, I think of is it Threshold, where they reach warp 10, and he makes that coffee for Paris, and being the Paris delight, and he gets really sick from it, and but it's because of the side effects of going to warp 10. But it's like Neelix is trying so hard, and, you know, he makes this food and it's like, yuck, like, some people just can't handle it.
Yeah, I know. I felt bad for that whole crew, especially for the first couple of years where, you know, he makes all these weird foods for them, you know, because, you know, they're saving replicator energy and stuff like that. And, you know, it's just like, what is, this crew, my gosh.
And you know, I always thought about this where I'm like, actual, like, gastronomy stuff around, like, eating, like, you think there'd be a little more, like, careful notation around eating in general. Like, I always wonder about that with, like, when you start combining alien races and hanging out in common spaces, like, it's guaranteed that a lot of the food that you'd be eating would be foreign, like, completely bodily foreign to your gut bacteria, you know. And it's like, you could just simply be like, hey, here's some Vulcan food, human, good luck. And it's like, I don't know if that's pretty dangerous. There'd have to be I'd hope there's a lot of research backing up, like, giving people different food from different, like, planets, because I just could imagine being like, oh, Ferengi love to eat get slugs and everything. And it's like, here, have some slug of cola. But you know, what, some slugs are poisonous, and I can't even imagine if slugs from another, like, world would be dangerous to humans. I'm like, where are they? Everyone will become kind of like uptight people being like, I want to know where these slugs are sourced from before I have it, because that seems kind of dangerous.
Maybe in the 24th century, humans have you know, some kind of, like, you know, medication, or
I would assume,
or some kind of evolved stomach that makes them to digest nutrients from foods from other worlds. You know, because, you know, granted, you know, with all the Alpha Quadrant races and stuff like that, you know, like we've understood that Bolian food, for example, is very, very flavorful because of their tongues. Apparently their tongues are like, you know, have these really weird tongues that, you know, allows them to, like, have more or, you know, it's just some of the things that people eat on the shows. And it's just like, you know, I'm an adventurous person when it comes to food. I am willing to try new things. You know, I've been that way for ever since I would say 2008 for me, because 2008 I went to Costa Rica, and I experienced food that I have never experienced before, and, you know, and I didn't know their main dish was rice and beans, so I had no idea. So I had rice and beans pretty much every day when I was in Costa Rica, even for breakfast. So that was, I think that's when my adventurous personality when it comes to food came out, was then, because I'm just like, I'm experiencing other cultures, cuisine.
I'll always try everything, like any food, like, once. My list of food I don't like is extremely small. I have yet to really eat anything that I don't like. There are like a handful of little things that I'm sort of like meh about, but if I eat them in the right context, I'm fine. Like, I think the only things that I notably know I don't like are grapefruit raw. That's tough for me. I just don't like it on its own. I'll eat it in things. I love grapefruit juice, but something about grapefruit kind of just bums me out when I eat it. I'm just like, I'm like, I can eat it, but it doesn't make me happy. And clamato juice, that combo for some reason icks me out. I have not been a fan. I can handle it in a Bloody Mary, but like, my mom loves to drink that, and like, I can't do the clam juice and tomato. But I love clams, or like I love like mollusky, like seafood type of stuff, and anything like that, like oysters. So like that part's fine, but I don't know. There's something a little off-putting about that combo. I think if I made it on my own, it'd be good. But
Yeah, it makes
that's why
sense.
I'm like, I'll try it. Like when I hear certain food, like throughout Star Trek, especially Klingon food, where everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, blood." I'm like, well, if you had black pudding, I'm like, a lot of British and Irish food is based around like blood-based food, like black pudding, like soaking food in like
Yeah.
fat.
Yeah.
And I've had that, and I really like it. So
Yeah. I'm not a big
sorry
fan.
to any vegans or vegetarians listening, but it's like I am an omnivorous person and pretty much have no dietary restrictions. So I'll eat like anything.
Yeah, I'm with you, Kenzie, on that. I mean, there's a handful of foods I won't eat. Like, speaking of like a food thing, I don't like at all. There was one time I had a friend who actually had a jar of bamboo pickle shoots,
Oh yes,
pickled
bamboo
bamboo shoots. Yeah, had a
I
jar
just
of
had
it.
soup last night, a Vietnamese bamboo shoot soup.
Yeah. So, but here's what happened. Because I was an adventurous person, I tried one and I put it in my mouth, took one bite, and I immediately threw it back up because
Oh.
it was nasty.
Yeah, you have to
I
chew
mean-
on bamboo shoots for a long time too. That's a big thing. Like it's weird to
Mhm.
eat one of those because it's like it'll just like you just keep on chewing.
Yeah, and it's just me. I'm a very adventurous person, unlike my wife, who is a very, very picky eater. So,
Yep, that's like Fletcher's very picky eater too. I probably eat, like his family's Korean, and I eat a lot of Korean food, and
Mhm.
everything his mom's ever given me food I absolutely love. But I like more of that food than Fletcher does. Like he doesn't even like kimchi, and like that's like a huge part of like Korean
Mhm.
cuisine.
yeah,
He's like he's a meat and potatoes or meat and rice kind of guy, pretty much. Like he's like
Yeah.
a starch and meat, and that's it. And
Yep.
some veggies, if I can sneak them in.
yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, totally. Like, my wife's a very picky eater and stuff like that. I mean, whenever I want to try to make something new, which I'm doing this week, that's one thing that I'm not saying like we're sponsored by this program, but I have tried HelloFresh.
Yep.
So, and my wife and I have had a few meals from them. We enjoy them. Like I said, this episode is not sponsored by HelloFresh.
Yeah.
Just keep you guys in mind, like we're not monetarily getting money from them, so but definitely yeah, so yeah, but with the HelloFresh meals, we it was actually the first time I ever made curry for the first time. The first time we were making a Middle Eastern dish with HelloFresh. So.
Yeah, there's so many types. When I was in high school, I had a lot of friends who were adventurous eaters. Like like they were more wardly, like a family that lived in my hometown that would travel a lot, and so we would do international food nights and try stuff. Like we had a whole series where we made different types of curries every week, like doing coconut curries or like different versions of curries that we liked, just to like try it out and get used to it. And I absolutely love curry. All sorts of curries are I do love like a lighter like coconut curry. That's like my favorite. But Indian food is amazing. Like paneer is like the greatest cheese product ever. And that's why when I think if you haven't had a lot of exposure to food, like looking at food and like Star Trek, we're like, ooh, weird. But it's like a lot of the food when you like look into like what they're eating, it's like, yeah, they actually put a little thinking into like, it's like, oh, Vulcans are mainly vegetarian. A lot of the foods are going to be very veggie based and very like, like more like soupy things. Not going to be food that they eat with their hands. Like very like careful foods that are simple and soft and vegetarian. And then you have the Klingons that are our barbecue boys that'll be like eating a rack of ribs or a skull stew and like or blood pies, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right. But I can see both sides of it where I'm like, yeah, I could enjoy all of that. That sounds good to me. Maybe not slug of cola though. I don't think I could be any sluggy stuff. I've never eaten slugs before, but I eat a lot of bugs in general.
Yeah.
Like no critters like that.
Yeah.
I have eaten chapulines, which are like fried crickets, like a Mexican fried crickets, like chapulines tacos. And those are good. They basically eat like you ever had like pumpkin seeds, like, or like really tiny pepitos, like seeds?
Oh yeah.
They're just crunchy and like they're nice. I like that, but I
Yeah.
haven't had a lot of people would be like, eat some cicadas, right? Time to eat some brewed egg cicadas, but we don't have those up here. I'm not going to eat any of the annual cicadas up here. No dog day cicadas for me.
Yeah. So I think about like all those like foods from Star Trek, like you said, the Vulcan steak, with foamy soup,
Yep.
and we've seen two different colors of it, by the way.
Soup.
2 different colors in Star Trek. We've seen a red one, which was in the original series, and we saw a green one, which was in Enterprise.
Which would make I feel like that makes sense. Like, but think of like how much food we have variation. Like, I always laugh at all the ales. It's like, oh, you got like Bajoran ale, you've Romulan ale, like
Romulan ale, which is illegal.
Like, yeah, and it's like, but it's just like there's so many of these that are just like that, like Andorian ale, and I'm like, all right, but it's like, think about it, like we don't have a human ale. Like, it's like I always like laugh about that because I'm like, it's very simple, right? Like here we have such a like complex, like food is so complex that I'm like, there's no way there's just one kind of ale, right? Like that's supposed to be like the popular thing they give to the Federation. Like, I don't know, what would human ale be? Would it be a Pilsner? Would it be Hefeweizen? Would it be some German beer? Would it be Bud Light? Like, would it be American beer? Are we gonna do some like plain, like, I always just wonder about that. I'm like, we gonna hand the Federation Guinness and be like, this is human ale? So
yeah, because in DS9 you see Miles O'Brien drinking beer at Corks, and I think maybe it is like Guinness. In your imagination it could be Guinness. Here's the human ale, because he's Irish. Because
but it's like, I just think about that where I'm like, every time I get in, that's the only thing I ever like. I know we can't world build that much, but every time like Star Trek does a pretty good job at trying to like diversify the alien races they show, like having different outfits or having different styles of faces, especially in newer series. But it's like one of those things where it's like weird when you just see this really big simplistic like Vulcan soup or something, and it's like, I don't think that's like that seems a little too simple. Like, think of how many soups we have. We don't have a human soup. It's like there are a ton of soups, and they belong to more like ethnicities. You don't see as much ethnicity breakdown in other alien species. Like, the closest thing we see often would be like where we see an actual split would be Vulcans and Romulans, right? Like, that offshoot where it's like, yes, very, very different, like lifestyles and everything, like started from the same but totally different now. And like humans, that's like a common for us, but we don't see like different types of Klingons except poked fun at because fourth walling, like for the anniversary of Star Trek, where it's like Worf being like, we don't talk about those original series Klingons. It's like, well, why is that? Like, it's that's like, all. I'm like, hey, they have different ethnicities, right? Like, just like humans, I'm sure there's tons of variations, and every ethnicity region on that home world probably has different food too. So
there's
with like, all these, I take it with a grain of salt with this or whatever main spice. I don't know what the spice of the Star Trek world is. I would assume it's not Dune spice, but
no,
I'm assuming salt is pretty big, especially since there were like aliens in the original series that literally tried to live on salt. So like I'm like, salt probably is pretty common for an ingredient across the Federation. It seems to be a pretty common occurrence.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and some of the drinks I see on Star Trek, I want to try. Like, I'm not so sure about Bloodline, but definitely the Saurian brandy that's been mentioned so many times, especially because I like that. I mean, I'm a big fan of the color orange. So, but the big bottle that they have for the Saurian brandy and the original series was orange. I go like, I want that because it's orange. I don't know why, but it's just me. And it's just and I've seen like all those drinks and stuff like that. And You know what's funny about the way production was for Star Trek? You know, in the original series for food, it was those like colored blocks of Play-Doh, and then you get to like TNG and DS9 and Voyager and Enterprise for sure. You actually get to see like real food sitting right in front of you, and I'm like, how do they do that? You know, it's like, whoever made that for whoever they made those kind of like foods, you know, kind of like props for the actors to eat the food.
I think when people thought of the future, they were like, at that time, definitely had this vibe of like, it's going to be like our current state. Like, I don't think a lot of people imagined that you would just probably try to emulate the same, like the comforts of the home world. Retro sci-fi was all about trying to like seem futuristic, which meant like simplicity and minimalism. Like, we're gonna wear these really minimal looking outfits. We're gonna eat gray blobs of food because that's the future, right?
Yeah.
It's all about necessity and like getting stuff done because we're in the future. We don't care about all this, like all the frills of cooking like from home and having food that looks appealing to the human psyche. Like, but that's something futuristic, I guess. But now I realize I'm like, nah, I think food will always be forever tied to, no matter how far in the future we are, I think food will always have this psychological thing of like, it has to look like appealing. It's something you want to eat. And like, you know, it's an interesting topic, like food in general, like what looks good to us, like what, like, and what grosses us out, like, you know, Cardassian like diet and like Klingon diet is meant to, like, I think they purposely write it to be a little like, like, you know, they're trying to play on that a little bit to like be like, ooh, look at these brutish people with their brutish foods or really weird foods, like Cardassians with fish juice. Eat lots of eggs and like that's like not necessarily bad, but it's definitely meant to be like a reflection of how they are as characters.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, and you said earlier that the Klingons are like the big barbecue guys. They're also the
barbecue
ones who,
boys.
They're the ones who actually eat.
If I was making a stack of ribs, if I wanted to have a good barbecue, I'd invite a lot of Klingons. And that's how I'm like, that's how I'm trying to think about this. I'm like, if I needed to invite some aliens from Star Trek into my home, like what foods would I want to make, or like what I know that they'd like human food, like human dishes that they would enjoy. Like I think Vulcans would like leek soup because that makes me think of the pomeek soup. I'm like, I feel like that's basically it. And probably like a miso soup. They probably would like miso. And Klingons, I would have a big barbecue for. We do some short ribs and we'd be eating black pudding and bacon and eating all that.
Yeah, and I
think Cardassians would like Bloody Marys with some clamato. I'm pretty sure they'd do clamato. Maybe some fish juice thrown in there. I think they would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Andorians are also very like vegetarian vibes too. Their cabbage soup and like, hey, we got that too.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So I would totally.
And Neelix seems to like everything, so I have Neelix helping me out in the kitchen, hopefully not making anyone sick by accident,
and not having Leola roots with it too.
Yeah, the Leola roots. So many roots. Like, why do we have so many foods with this Leola root?
Yeah, it's funny, you know, when we first see the Leola root for the first time in Voyager. Chakotay takes a bite of it and spits it back out. It's like, you expect us to eat this?
Yep. Do.
Yeah, sure do.
He makes a lot of food with the Leola root.
Yeah, it's crazy, you know. Some of the foods that they have made over the past 55 years is just like insanity. It's like it's like I
just want a tour of Neelix's hydroponics bay, where he grows a lot of his produce and stuff. I want to see like what he's choosing to grow. Like what does Neelix's home garden look like to support, you know, a multitude of palates? I mean, that's got to be a hard job. Imagine being like a chef for not only like your own like race, but other alien races. Like, how do you cater to that? I mean, granted, on Voyager, most people are human or partially human, or, you know, have some relation to being human, or closer humanoids.
Yeah.
Like, Vulcans have very similar tendencies to humans, like
Mhm.
food wise. They're not like feeding a lot, and Balana's half human, and so for the most part, like he should be cooking quite a bit of human food. Like he
Yeah,
plays around with it. I mean, that's why I tried to make a cool, unique coffee for Paris, because he's like, well, here's this like coffee is pretty universal. I guess people pretty much like that. That's a human contribution, I think, that
yeah,
we carry into the Federation. Like, hey, people want to get addicted to caffeine. Like, it's one of our favorite things. Like,
yeah, and it's like it's not the only time he's made special coffee too. I mean, he made one for Janeway too, saying it's even better than coffee.
yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I like some of those foods that they've seen, like I've seen before on Star Trek. Like some of the like Hasperat.
Oh
Sam-
yes, that actually looks good. That just looks like I don't know if you've seen that a lot at like dinner parties where it's like the rolled like tortillas with
Mhm.
like ham and everything like all wrapped up. That's what it basically looks like to me. Like, and you cut it up and eat it. I'm like,
Yeah,
that's something like I feel like I could easily make. Like,
yeah, yeah. It's
or
like a
the
spicy
Alfarian
sandwich.
hair pasta that's literally hair. Like,
Yeah,
but it's apparently super good. So I'm like, I mean, I could eat that. I'm like, I like angel hair pasta.
yeah.
I don't care if it's real hair, if it eats like a pasta.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, granted, it'd be interesting to try all those foods, if we were living in the Star Trek universe. So, but some of those foods I go like, no, nah. Some of those drinks, nah. I mean, Canar.
Yeah. I could
Yeah.
eat jumbo mollusks. I could do that.
Yep.
I like mollusks in it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
You could do Vulcan port. I love port, so I would totally drink that.
mhm,
Um, Romulan ale, I would try it.
mhm.
Just
There's actually, I think there actually are selling that, and like some places. I think you have to buy it on eBay or something like that.
Yeah.
But it used to be made like years ago. But and it's funny about Romulan ale. It's first introduced in the Wrath of Khan, and it's blue.
Yep.
But when you get to like Nemesis, it's gold color.
Yeah.
It's
I'm like, which is it, or is it different kinds?
Yeah, it's a different kinds. Who knows? But it's more like, because when I first saw it in the Wrath of Khan, I'm thinking like, does this look like fluoride mouthwash?
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of does look like it. Just straight up looks like that. Like,
Yeah.
kind of funny.
Yeah, I think like they're drinking mouthwash.
At least like yeah, it pretty much just looks like, I think I was trying to look it up because I was like, someone said that in real life there's like someone who pretended to like make like a real life version of it, and it's just like a mix of it's Bacardi rum, Everclear alcohol, of course, because it has to be full alcohol Everclear, and then Booster Rock, like and so I'm like, that makes sense. Yeah. I'm like, I could see that, but it definitely has to be that it definitely has to have that Everclear, because this whole point why it's illegal, because it is so alcoholic, and it's like, that's why it's like trying to hand that out to people. But everyone has like, it seems to have like some sort of ale. But I'm just sitting here being like, at least for humans, our big contribution is coffee and Earl Grey tea. Probably
And
our
root
most
beer.
common things that get brought up all the time, and people are like, what are those? It's like, oh, it's human tea. it's human ale. I'm like, what would be human ale? What would be our human thing?
Yeah, and it's like, there's actually one more thing I like to say that about the food. There's actually one that's mentioned. It's called groat cakes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for mentioned in one episode of DS9, and apparently there's like this awesome syrup that goes with it. I wouldn't mind trying that, but
That's is that a Bajoran thing since Deep Space Nine, right? A lot of the food is like,
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
yeah.
But yeah,
there's like a lot like Bajoran stuff. Yeah, it looks like it'd be something that I would like the mobile fruit, and like it's like a lot of like fruits and veggies and fresh things, and I'm like, yeah, Bajorans got my palate going.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about that, stuff like that. But then definitely, but I think the only things that humans contribute to in the 24th century that people seem to enjoy are coffee, Earl Grey tea, and root beer.
Yeah,
So,
root beer.
so yeah, because root beer is mentioned many times in DS9. So, but and I mean, it's funny. The only person who seems to hate it is Garrick. So,
Yeah,
because he thought it was so vile.
I think that's amazing.
Yeah, he thought it was vile and stuff like that. So, but I love root beer. So, but you saying that insults me. But you're insulting me, Garrick. Come on. So
yeah, I mean, well, that'd be interesting, right? Because I'm sure like flavors play differently. Because that's like herbs.
Yep.
Like, I mean, root beer is basically like sugar and like whatever that herb is that's used in root beer.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that plays off of people's tongues. Where just like in humans, some people can't even eat cilantro without it tasting like soap. And I'm sure like there's aliens when they eat something where it's like, oh, look at this savory, beautiful cow like a hamburger, and they're just like, this tastes like dirt to me. Like, I'm sure the gaminess effect is probably real, like because gaminess is just around like being like, this doesn't taste like cow. Like when you have gamey meat, it's just meat that doesn't taste red meat that doesn't taste like cow, and like that same thinking can apply to, I'm sure, other foods where it's like you probably could eat something from another planet that sounds like it'd be pretty similar to what we eat here, like the blood pie, the Klingon blood pie. I'm sure like someone from England or Ireland could eat that and be like, yeah, I've had black pudding, like, but it might be a little bit of a gamey effect where it's like, it doesn't taste like the blood pies I know.
Yeah,
but it tastes like that, but it's different.
Yeah, I think you're more thinking of blood pudding. I think you're thinking.
Yeah, it's like, but it's like a black pudding. Like, but it's like that similar concept of like the like cooked in blood to a pie crust or like a type of crustiness.
Yeah,
or sausage.
Yep, I've eaten British food before. With
black pudding is like an essential thing in our household. Like my parents always make black pudding and different types of like sausages for Irish food, because family be represented from Ireland, got to eat all those heavy breakfasts with the beans and toast and bangers and rashers and blood pudding.
Yeah, bangers and mash. Yeah, definitely. Yep. But definitely with the also with corned beef and cabbage for Irish food.
Oh yeah, I love corned beef, and like cabbage is just amazing. And that's why I'm like, dude, cabbage stew, heck yeah, I'm all about that. Give me all the cabbage soup.
Okay. Okay. I think that's about it for this topic. Any final thoughts?
Now I'm just hungry. I'm like thinking of all the food that I can. I'm like, I might have to go buy that Neelix cookbook and try to make some of this food. It'd be fun to do that, and I'd post pictures. I'm like, hey, if anyone has ever made any Star Trek-esque food or drinks, you gotta share those pics with us. Yeah. Show us your Romulan ale.
Yeah, definitely. So, I have no final thoughts other than, some of those foods I wouldn't mind trying. Other ones I'm just like grossed out. I go like,
nope.
Maybe? Nope. That's more for the Klingon food. Because gok, for example.
Gok.
I wouldn't want to eat that.
Yep. Me either.
I mean, I've eaten a worm before. I did it on a dare when I was 7 years old. But I wouldn't want to eat them for a meal.
I don't want to be eating a pile of worms.
No. So, but speaking of Klingon food, the one scene that I really enjoy watching all the time is from A Matter of Honor, in which Riker is eating all that Klingon food on 10 forward.
Yeah.
And just like, eating all that food, getting his stomach prepared for it and stuff like that, and he's like enjoying it. I
mean, I'm sure it would be too bad, I guess, if you're in the mood for it. It's I
guess
like, not for me.
Not for me. I go like, oh geez, Riker, you gluttonous pig.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right, so episode 24 next week. It's gonna be what if scenarios. If I don't know, I think I have an idea of where I want to go with it, but But I think we'll just
figure it out as we talk. It's
Yeah.
nice. It's nice to have like open-ended episodes where we're just kind of like, I don't know, we'll talk about it. Let's conceptualize a little bit here.
Yeah.
Where do we want to go with this? Those are fun.
All right.
Thought experiment time.
Yeah, exactly. So until next time, next week, take care and live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.